Hi, I want to talk about a couple of items or trends that they don't make the news that much, but they're very worthwhile, and a lot of people miss it. First of all, I want to talk about something that's positive, but then later on go on stuff that's really depressing. Uh, I think that there is so many technologies that are coming online, and these technologies they don't make the news that much because they just kind of fade away in respect to the news that's like about wars and terrorist attacks. Well, what was really hitting the wires was what the a terrorist group did in Pakistan and came in and blew up 27 Iranian border guards, and there were ceremonies. I think the Iranians are very pissed, and there will be retaliation. But there is so many technologies coming out. I want to talk about some of them. I was reading about bioprinting, and that some companies are able to print entire organs. I saw a picture of a nose and partial face, and then there was talk about bioprinting hearts, cornea of the eye, and all that. Well, some of the other stuff I was watching was all the advances in 3D printing, and there's like a ton of videos. But I guess the 3D printing of metal parts is taking off because they have figured out a way to kind of dart bits of or particles of metals and make them stick together, and then make parts like for a car. Or that's really valuable. And then the plastic 3D printing is just outrageous. I was watching another video. They're making cloth and plastic parts, flooring. It just goes on and on, almost everything. And then we are not even there with nanotechnology. That's really going to take off. Then there is quantum computers are coming online. There is all these advances in crypto communications, crypto contracts or smart contracts. All kinds of cryptocurrencies are coming on. I think the crypto contracts or tokens that replace or or represent the shares of companies, that's going to be very big because it could basically replace the fraudulent criminal gangs in Wall Street, and they're secure. You can buy shares of a company and they could transfer dividends to you, and then because it's on a blockchain, you can see everything about the company. You don't have to speculate what this fraudster is doing or that Jewish criminal with ties to Israel is hatching up. So yeah, these are all. It's like humanity is acquiring all this new wealth, and I think that countries that don't have a history of like United States of fraud and large-scale theft and militarism, then these new better technologies come in, and the people over there just adopt it, and then they become wealthy, and they're gradually replacing all these first world, supposedly first world countries in wealth and influence and innovation. I talked about this stuff on 2019 Psychic Predictions, some of it, but also that uh, the countries that have these older traditions, like United States, that they don't know how to give up this post or this supposed role that they play in the world, then they're gonna be like bleeding resources, bleeding technology, bleeding personnel to all kinds of countries and outside world, because they are trying to reenact or bring to life something that was something their role in the world, that they envision themselves to possess such a role, but it really they don't deserve it, and nobody thinks of them as leaders, but they still have to spend the cash and the sacrifices to bring that aura back. While I was watching the failure of the Warsaw Conference, that how many countries they didn't want to participate, and then the stuff Netanyahu said that pissed off the Poles, and then I don't know how the conference ended or didn't end or was interrupted. Or what? Who cares? What these guys? All they wanted to do was have a similar conference to what the Clinton was doing. Collected all these idiotic states, called it the Friends of Syria, and then they created a better ISIS, and then made a huge mess of Syria. And they just want to do that with Iran and Venezuela and all these other countries. But what's actually happening, and a lot of people miss it, I saw in the news that 50 countries that are all similar, smaller countries like North Korea, Iran, well, there's a couple of big countries like China and Russia. That's a lot of countries, 50 countries. They joined in together and they said that we're going to modify or bring action in UN to prevent countries like United States to make unilateral military actions against them. Because the U.S. is going from place to place, was doing stuff in Syria, and then said, hey, we can't do this because we might get killed off, and then they moved on to now it's Venezuela. Well, I think that the destiny of the U.S. military is going to go into one of these places, like one of these countries that says, oh, they're weak and we can just fuck them over and take their oil or gold or whatever, and they're going to go into one of these places. I don't know, it might be Venezuela, and then they're going to like get entrenched, and then like thousands of military personnel, they're going to go in there and they're going to get killed. Like stuff like this happens at the end of empires. Well, when the Ottoman Empire was ending, then the British were making a last effort to just even come in and take over the mainland, the Turkey itself, of just completely overwhelm and destroy the empire. But then the Ottomans had all these soldiers and weapons, and finally a battle erupted, and it's very famous, called Gallipoli. Galli means coming, Poli means the bridge, the coming bridge, the bridge that connected the rest of the empire to the mainland, which nobody in Turkey would even dream of anybody coming in and try to even destroy the heartland of the empire. But the British tried, and then there was a standoff. I guess like 1 million soldiers died. This is huge numbers for World War One era or before times, that all the soldiers were standing soldiers on both sides. They were shooting at each other, and they all died over there in the Gallipoli, the coming bridge. So, but this kind of relates to what the U.S. is going to experience, its own Gallipoli, which means that, you know, one of these countries, and in fact it is a lot of hints, I'm gonna tell you a couple of them, was the Putin was saying that, hey, if you put your rockets in Europe that can reach us very quickly, or well, we're gonna just target the mainland United States. We're not gonna mess around with your allies, or we're gonna just blast you away. And then I think it was Iranian General Soleimani, and he was saying that in this there was a eulogy for all these soldiers that had been blown apart, and he said that hey, you know, we are not gonna mess around with you anymore, and we have our leadership permission to. I think what's going to happen is going to be rocket attacks on Saudi soil, or Emirati, or the, you know, Israel direct itself. There is no like, hey, we're gonna go here and do this and that. No. This is going to be a direct attack. The same goes with the United States, because many American politicians, they think, oh, we are so like empire. Who would even in his right mind think to blow us apart, or nuke Washington D.C.? But this is exactly what happens at the end of an empire, or at the end of Roman civilization, when the Romans had nothing around themselves but many countries that they had completely demolished, and they had nothing but enemies everywhere. So what happened is that some of the enemies, like the German tribes, they became very strong, and some of the last emperors were actually German, and they occupied large portions of the empire, and the empire then tried to integrate with them and see if it could survive in that fashion, but it failed. And because the Germans, they don't follow the Roman code of ethics or laws or governance. They were Germans. They were like wild tribes at that time, and so I wonder how bloody these coming wars will become. Either like Americans will go into Venezuela or another country, and then they get entrenched, and they get into a war like Gallipoli, and then a lot of their military will get killed. They have karma. They have a lot of karma, and this karma is looking everywhere. Let me find a way to settle down on them. Well, that's one kind of looking at it, one interpretation. Then there was a comment by, I think it was General Soleimani, or yeah, they said that these attacks on our soil, or our soldiers, or our other aspects of our society will not stop until we attack them where they feel safe. They are in their own country. They would never dream that somebody would come in and nuke the crap out of them, or the Russians would EMP them, or completely destroy Washington D.C. or cities in Israel. But this is what will happen when some countries, they have too much karma, and the karma is gonna catch up. I wanted to use the title Black Karma. What's the other one? Black Karma, Retribution, and Nemesis, which is like the historical sequence that empires go through when they have all this ideology and philosophy of how the world should be, and the world says, no, we don't want to do that, we want to do something else. Like 50 countries, they know, these other 50 countries, they know that what happened in Syria, what happened in Libya, what will happen to Venezuela, it will happen to them. Okay, when the empire finished devouring and destroying Venezuela, they will just simply move on into another country. So there is all these people coming in and trying to stop the United States. Then I want to also talk about cost of militarism, that there is a lot of costs associated with it, but it's kind of so diffused up because the government prints money or bonds and does all these stupid things, that wealth is simply extracted or subtracted from all of society and permanently leaves United States, permanently leaves the Ottoman Empire, permanently leaves the Soviet Union. Well, I was watching this video about the Russian women, and it was showing, there was one lady was showing how to go and find somebody. Russians are very pretty women, and then it was showing Moscow, and then it felt like I was looking at Ankara because we went there, and then she went by the side of one building. It was many stories building. It was a significantly big building. She said, "Oh, you see this building? This whole building is in Moscow. It only cost $1 million. This whole building, like many stories, and so what happened is that the Soviets took all this money and wealth and spent it all kinds of places in their military, develop weapons, going to space, and do this, going to Afghanistan, all kinds of shit. And this wealth, it was extracted from their society. And then at the same time, their relations with anybody, with their own minorities inside, or the Europeans, or the Middle Eastern, or anybody else, it deteriorated. Their industries, all the products that were made, were not shipped to get the new capital. It went into all kinds of stupid shit. So the interest in this city, which is a very nice city, has very pretty women, very nice restaurants, gradually died out. Their currency died out. And then when the Soviets fell apart, still after all these years that the government has been doing things in a lot better way, they have better diplomacy, they have better weapons, they manage their money, all kinds of stuff to prevent that from happening. The society has not been able to regenerate this wealth that was extracted or subtracted. So this is very telling that these wars and these adventures and these hostility with foreigners, it will have a very long lasting effect. And in fact, many foreigners many people who would be immigrant are not coming here, and many good talents, like I told you in other video, I was talking to my mother, so that a lot of Iranians who were very wealthy and also very educated, they already left the United States because of all these animosities that has been going on for 40 years. And in fact, the US government has kept this atmosphere of warfare, and that we are imminently ready to attack Iran, imminently ready to attack Iraq or anybody. So all this stuff, it kills business, it kills tourism, it kills bilateral relationships. It has very long-lasting effect, because the new generation of people not only have to replace this wealth, but have to dispel all these propaganda and all these animosities, and then there might be tourism like 40 years later. I mean, just like now, people like me, they like Russian women. They're thinking, hey, maybe there is a, it's a better, maybe I could go there and find someone. So, but this is happening so many years after the Soviet republics became independent and the Soviet Union was dissolved. Well, there is an expression or a saying by, I think it was FDR, I'm not totally sure, is that he was saying that the military ventures, military establishment is a threat to American democracy. Well, nobody listened to him before. And so every time a scientist or an engineer or somebody that works in the agriculture is diverted and being used for some kind of military mission or for the military, then the society loses that resource, that talent, that resource that really belong to everybody. Well, I could say that in the last 40 years, I came and studied, and I have very good IQ and very good degrees, all in engineering. I've seen the US government do nothing but sabotage my career, nothing but badmouth Iranians, the Iranian government, nothing but secretly give money to terrorist organizations, nothing but to stop, prevent careers from or relationships from developing. It did nothing more than totally destroy Iran's aviation industry, prevent Iranians from even buying parts for the older planes, even went into other countries and forced them to stop doing business in all kinds of areas, and none of it had any kind of use or value except to destroy resources and also make a lasting animosity that I don't know how many generations it will take for Iranians or Americans to overcome all this trash and all the wealth that was destroyed or have been vaporized. I think that one of these days, if the Russians or the Chinese, they blow up the swamp or the Washington DC, then they probably have done the American people a great deal of service to get rid of all these very militant politicians that do nothing but cause problems and warfare, and maybe their black karma they have will disappear with them. Well, thank you very much for being in my YouTube channel, and please subscribe and leave your comment.